Hello all, I hope you're doing well today. Given this channel is in its early days, it's probably time for another quick series. I was going to explore how to build spiritual character and how modernity can make modern men weak. Now, I want to be clear here, when I'm talking about building spiritual character and strength, this isn't the tough guy alpha male routine that you'll see online. Now, I don't want to diminish that too much. There's a lot of wisdom in there, though it can obviously veer off a bit too much into the ego. The point here is to try and understand how modernity afflicts us as men and what character really is. Like I say, sometimes that can mean being very strong and forthright, physically imposing, intimidating, great in an argument, whatever it is. And these are the things that tend to be very popular out there in this day and age, and they're more warrior oriented. And again, elements of that I think we should certainly be open to and welcome. But like I say, that can veer into an unthinkingness at times, perhaps even a lack of wisdom. That's why I said in a prior video, if you're very strong in warrior energy, you might want to spend some time sitting with magician and lover types. And if you're a magician lover, you might want to move towards a warrior energy. It will really help you grow as a man, make you more well-rounded. But in this video, I want to break down 5 key dimensions. Well, I want to break down 1. I'm going to do 5 over the series. But the idea here is to explore these 5 key dimensions. And at the end of it, hopefully you've got some stuff to take away about why modernity is so corrosive for men and how you can combat that and build real character within. As I say, the aim isn't to be Arnold Schwarzenegger going around bumping into people on the pavement or anything like that. The aim is to be at peace, still, steady within yourself and growing as a man. That's something that we can't decide in the mind. It happens through the heart. So the first thing I want to speak about is the notion of a man being given assets that he should work for. Or maybe we could even think about that as rendering him with no responsibilities, And why I want to say this is it's the counter of what we often think of in the modern world as the big challenge. Many people speak about poverty or, being without as the big challenge. And of course, that is true to a large extent. And they're real battles to face. And people who've overcome those things, good for them. It's also probably true that a lot of young men today are being pushed into a system to work for something that's just not going to provide them anything. They're working for a wage, for a job they don't care about, and they can't afford a house. The dating market's a mess. I get all of that. And that can make us think like, well, wouldn't it be easy if we had all the things just on a plate? And the real reality is that is not spiritually good for you at all. I've been involved in lots of men's groups during my time in London. And it was common to see guys who'd come from backgrounds where their parents had money, say, or even they'd got a job which paid a lot of money, and they were struggling with it big time because they didn't know how to handle that money. And we don't think about that at all in this day and age. We just think money is good and that's it. But you will be surprised what money can do to people. You put £100,000 in the wrong person's hand, that guy can ruin his life. End up all sorts of coke and hookers and booze and all sorts of things. Other guys, they just don't know how to hold on to money, how to plan with it, how to strategize, how to invest. They want a new Mercedes, they want to show off to the chickie boos. And then, before you know it, they've spent all the money, they're on finance again, and they're back at square one in a few years. There was that guy in the UK who won the lottery, many years ago now. He was some ne'er-do-well from East Anglia, if I remember rightly. He won about, £5-6 million. And I think it was something like 7 years after he won it, he was back being a bin man again. Because he didn't know how to handle the money. Extreme example, I know. But what I'm saying is, we have to recognise you have a soul, you have character within. And if that character hasn't been perfected, you're not going to be able to handle poverty or wealth. And this is a harsh truth we're not taught in this day and age. It's why very often as well, when you do see a self-made man, he can handle that money because it's maybe taken him 25 years to earn it. And he's had to be embarrassed. He's had to fall flat on his face. He's had to learn where the wrong moves are, where the right moves are. What happens if you go out on a Tuesday night and get drunk and try and impress women? You're not going to last very long. You don't turn up at the meeting very well. You miss out on the deal. On and on it goes. So he's built the character over time. But we can understand the principles of this journey once we start to really understand the true value of work. Now, a downside of that we've got to be careful of is that's really been corrupted in this day and age, as I touched on in the beginning. So we have to be careful of resentment towards the world there. Resentment will poison you, so be wary of it. But you're not wrong to point out, there's a sense of justice in pointing out that the modern system has essentially made it so work isn't paying for people anymore. That's why so many people are getting fed up, moving abroad, thinking outside of the normal ways you would do in this system to alternative political models and parties and so on. But the point here is that there is something vital in your soul. There's a value in work that gives you and builds your character correctly. And this is something we should really, really welcome. And it's a real challenge to modernity, which is essentially keeping most of us struggling, wage slave, etc., and giving us the Instagram dream of the guy who quit his 9-to-5 year, now he's lounging by the pool while the stacks come in. It's like, yeah, okay, mate, whatever. That's not really going to complete you, and it's not really going to be possible for most people. And behind the scenes, it's all BS anyway. The reality is, what we need to be looking for here is the state of your soul, And if we actually cared about one another, we'd put that first rather than money. And sure, some people are going to be successful and others not so much. That's the reality of life. But we're looking to develop the character above all else. I was reading Will Nolan. For those who don't know, he's a sort of Catholic men's coach guy, and he wrote an interesting piece on the biblical line on money. And he in no way was saying that money is bad. I think he's right in that. But he's saying that it can control us, just like the rich man, and we see in the parables with Jesus, where Jesus tells the rich man to get rid of all of his wealth. And the sort of socialist type think, well, that's Jesus is being a socialist, don't you know? They're normally atheists, ironically, but the point here is that they're sort of misreading that. Jesus isn't demeaning money necessarily. What he's saying is money's got hold of that person. So that guy needs to let go of his money because he values it more than anything else. And it's a too strong a tie to the material world. Now, we all have that strong tie. As I've said before, I think for most of us, it might be lust, some it's power, some of it might be some addictive behaviour. But there's always something that we're drawn to in the world, and we need to overcome that, or at least start the process of seeing beyond it if we're to begin the spiritual journey. But Nolan quoted this from Proverbs: "First, help me never to tell a lie. Second, give me neither poverty nor riches. Give me just enough to satisfy my needs. For if I grow rich, I may deny you and say, 'Who is the Lord?' And if I am too poor, I may steal and thus insult God's holy name." So again, I think that's speaking to something about the state that we should be aiming for within. It's not about all these flash things, the Andrew Tate promise of the world. You got a Bugatti, yeah? All that sort of stuff. I mean, God bless him. At least he's enjoying his cars and all that. But look, you don't need a Bugatti. A Bugatti isn't going to save your soul. It's not going to save your civilization. It's not going to save Christendom. These things are just part of the liberal modernity that's very corrosive. And again, that's not me saying that a sports car is bad. All right, yeah, beautiful things, I'm sure. Not my cup of tea, but I can appreciate them for what they are. And if you like them, great. But they shouldn't be the defining factor of what you are in this world. It's where your soul is that matters more than anything else, and the rest will follow on from that. And this leads me to the second part of this, which is really what's happened to modern men in the era of feminism. Render a man with no responsibilities. Men like to feel like they have a goal, like they have a purpose, like they have a tribe they take care of. And that's natural. That's a beautiful thing. Of course, it can have a shadow side, and that shadow side is all you'll see in the modern day. But very often men want responsibility deep down. It will make them take actions that they normally wouldn't think of. It will bring alive parts of their soul, the wise father, the protector. And these are very, very strong masculine characteristics. We can see there's a lot of mockery around this in this day and age. And yeah, it's fair dues and all that. Everything deserves to be taken down a few pegs. But I often note in our modern era, everything is the comedian now. You look at the self-help guys, a lot of them are comedians, or even the politics guys. They come in through the comedian route. And that's because in this day and age, in the state of consciousness we're in, we almost don't trust anything higher. And the comedian can take everything back down to ground zero. And there's a sort of holy aspect to that in cutting down the powerful and the obnoxious. But there's another downside to it in that we're not really transcending what we are. because that's mocked, that idea. The idea is you're just here on this earth, you're just some normal bloke and that's all you'll ever be, and don't ever think you're above that. Now, if some guy's playing Billy Big Bananas, fair enough. But there's something in here about the responsibilities that should be foisted on a man in order for him to grow that's exceptionally important and allow him to grow into something greater. The sort of man that you think, wow, that guy was impressive. When I used to do the men's groups down in London, one of the things I'd say to guys is think about 5 men you admire, and you don't have to admire them for everything. Maybe you admire one because of his working attitude. Maybe another one is spiritual depth. Maybe one is brave and courageous. Maybe another one is calm and poised when it comes to difficult debates. Whatever it is, find who those people are. And you'll see there are people out there who are really working on building those higher characteristics. And it seems to me that we need to be open to that. Of course, consciousness about not turning into Billy Big Bananas and thinking, the big I am and all that. But the idea is that we need to embrace those responsibilities in order to guide us to that path. Now, you can see how this will all come together in the sense that if we have hard work for a fair living and we have responsibility, that's going to equal good men. But there needs to be a sense that the men actually align with one another here as well. And this is another big issue with the modern day. Everybody's trying to beat each other all the time. If you have a Bugatti, like Andrew Tate, the reason I'm saying it like that is because that's how Andrew Tate says it. Suddenly that makes you better. And there's nothing wrong with it, wanting to achieve things and doing well. That's great. But we want to applaud the man who does it for the right reasons and is now enjoying the rewards. The guy who's using it as some tool to show, his superiority to his fellow men, I don't really buy that. Why? Because I think in our era, we've been so atomized, so treated as individuals, it's making us not side with our brothers any longer. And in an era where things are falling apart spiritually, politically, nationally, regionally, civilizationally, it's time to think about our brothers and what sort of state they're in, how we can help them. And you might find when you help your brother, he will be more open to helping you. This is why it's a big mission of mine on the Substack to try and create a place down the line where men can connect, where they can talk about their issues, their challenges, what's going on, and find the answers. Because the mainstream sure as hell isn't going to do it. They've ripped apart every space for men, and they will continue to, because they can only understand the shadow side of masculinity. It's part of the liberal dogma of the age. But there is a light side of the man, and that man is one that is willing to work. He doesn't want to chase all these mega dreams so he can show off to the world. He works nobly and works hard and enjoys his rewards, but on top of that, he remembers his responsibilities. It's that keeps him and his society and civilization ticking over. Anything outside of that, be it poverty or the great wealth of the rappers with their jets and cheeseburgers and Bugattis, that's not the way, my friends. That will lead to our corrosion. So this was part 1. Part 2 will be with you soon. Enjoy the rest of your day. And do come and join us over on the Substack. We have a monthly call there where you can connect with the community. I've got a free call on the group work soon and all sorts of exclusive content, as well as big plans coming down the line as well. Nice to see you there.